It's only normal for siblings to compare themselves to one another, and there are few things more intensely contested among collectors and aficionados than the age-old matter of Rolex versus Tudor. The two legendary Swiss watch companies have had a long and entwined history that stretches back to 1926, and for the most part, there has never been much of a debate about which firm is the best. And there's no denying that Rolex is as popular as ever, and Tudor appears to be reaping the benefits of the brand thanks to the crown's present scarcity. Tudor is attracting a growing number of watch aficionados for reasons other than the brand's proximity to Rolex. Let's look at the contrast between the two brands in terms of brand image, design, and quality. What are the most popular models and how well do they keep their value? But the real question is Tudor on the verge of achieving the same stature as its big brother Rolex? And is a Tudor a better Rolex alternative? Hello and welcome back to Above First Class. In this channel, we will be featuring epic luxury news and trends, and for today's episode, we will find out if Tudor really is the better alternative for Rolex. So sit back and stick with us until the end of this video as we find out the answers together. Tudor was always supposed to be a more inexpensive choice, and it had its own storied history until the brand cut down distribution in the early 2000s. Altogether discontinuing sales of its timepieces in the United States owing to sagging sales and a lack of direction. That all changed with the brand's relaunch, which began discreetly in 2009, officially launched in 2010, and has been gaining traction ever since. Tudor has been rebranding itself as a more young and style-focused company since 2017, with the help of celebrities like David Beckham, Lady Gaga, and the New Zealand All Blacks rugby team. This strategy is diametrically opposed to Rolex's marketing strategy. Despite the fact that Tudor is possibly more style-conscious than its elder, the watches in its current lineup are truly all excellent timepieces. Many collectors praise Tudor as the thinking buyer's choice because of the combination of fashion-forward outlook with Rolex-derived excellence. Furthermore, the price differential both at retail and on the used market is significant. Tudor's flagship products such as the Black Bay and Pelagos cost around half as much as Rolex's most popular models, such as the Datejust and Submariner. Given this, it's safe to conclude that choosing between the two is as tough as it's ever been. Now let's take a closer look at the Rolex GMT versus Tudor GMT and see how they measure up. In 1954, Rolex and Pan Am collaborated to release the first GMT-Master. The two-tone bezel on the original model incorporated the airline's characteristic red and blue hues. Because of its similarity to the globe emblem of the beverage company, this bezel combination has been lovingly dubbed the Pepsi. The Pepsi version is one of the most well-known and sought-after among collectors. In 1999, Rolex stopped producing the original GMT-Master. The Pepsi bezel, on the other hand, has survived in the GMT-Master 2, with Rolex releasing the first red and blue Cerachrom bezel on the white gold reference 116719 in 2014. Rolex didn't release the much-anticipated stainless steel version of the Cerachrom Pepsi until 4 years later. Rolex introduced the reference 126710 at Baselworld 2018. It has a few significant differences from the previous generation of the Pepsi GMT-Master 2, including a redesigned 40mm casing with modified lugs that give the watch a slimmer look. Instead of the traditional oyster bracelet, this new casing fits with the brand's famous Jubilee band. It also features Rolex's own caliber 3285 self-winding movement, which is superlative chronometer certified. As you know, the oyster casing, which is tough and water-resistant, helped Rolex establish its now legendary image. Tudor has previously been able to maintain its lower price point by employing generic movements and Rolex-made case components. Tudor also stated during the same event that they will be following in the footsteps of their parent company. They debuted the Black Bay GMT, which included a Pepsi bezel. The challenge was on with these two new releases. The Pepsi Black Bay GMT has a casing style that is identical to the brand's other Black Bay models. It is significantly bigger than Rolex's reference 126710, measuring 41mm. Both the hour and the supplementary time zone indicators include the brand's signature snowflake hands. The Tudor Pepsi, unlike the Rolex Pepsi, comes with a variety of band selections. A brown leather strap with a folding clasp, a two-tone fabric strap with a buckle, or a bracelet are all options. Tudor has always aimed to offer a more inexpensive alternative to Rolex since its inception. As a result of Tudor's lowering pricing point, there has traditionally been a major disparity in the timepieces made by these two companies. Tudor appears to be attempting to close the gap that has historically existed between these two makers in recent years. Although the movements inside Tudor watches were nearly identical to those found inside other brands' pieces, their Rolex-made casings ensured that they would still offer the same level of water resistance and durability as their more expensive brothers. Interesting. Other modern technology, including scratch-resistant ceramic bezels, silicone hairsprings, and titanium casings, are already appearing on selected Tudor models, allowing the brand's products to be just as technologically advanced as Rolex's current clocks. However, given the strict COSC tolerances, any actual variation in real-world timekeeping is likely to be just a few seconds every day at most. In fact, numerous well-known collectors have been surprised to discover that their Tudor clocks kept time as well as their Rolex watches. In practice, it's fair to argue that the movements and their performance aren't as dissimilar as the retail pricing may imply. Both the Rolex Sea Dweller and the Tudor Pelagus are modern and technologically advanced, mechanical dive watches with a touch of vintage design inspiration. Both watches have self-winding, chronometer-certified in-house movements with 70-hour power reserves, and both have scratch-resistant ceramic bezel inserts and sapphire crystals. What are your thoughts with Tudor's in-house movement compared to Rolex's? Let us know by commenting down below. On top of that, both watches are even fitted with helium gas escape valves, which makes these watches suitable for saturation diving applications. While the Pelagos has a depth rating of 500 meters, less than half that of the Rolex Sea Dweller. It also boasts a full titanium construction, a luminous bezel insert, and costs significantly less than half the price of the Sea Dweller. Rolex and Tudor will never be in direct rivalry since their management teams are on the same page. Tudor is excellently positioned to cater to the countless clients for whom a Rolex may now be slightly beyond their price range, since Rolex holds a more luxury-oriented position within the high-end watch industry. Rather than being seen as the poor man's Rolex, Tudor has established itself as a brand that is not afraid to do new things with its designs and color schemes. Furthermore, many of Tudor's current offers are vintage-inspired heritage pieces, whereas Rolex watch designs only go ahead, and the business rarely draws influence from the past. Tudor is now the daring and exhilarating alternative to its larger brother's staid conservatism. Likewise, the traditional notion that the corporation must rely on external mechanisms no longer holds water. Tudor has even produced its own dedicated chronograph, based on Breitling's excellent B01 from its Chronomat and Navitimer collections, rather of Rolex's Caliber 4130 from the Daytona. Tudor has ironically evolved into what many purists wish Rolex had remained: a maker of superb tool watches devoid of status symbolism, diamond embellishments, or precious metal finery. Is this to say that Tudor is now superior to Rolex? No. Rolex was and will most likely continue to be the world's most significant watch brand for the foreseeable future. The timepiece, as we know it, would not exist without Rolex's numerous breakthroughs, and the brand continues to pioneer many of the technologies that are defining the industry today. The Rolex name is worldwide linked with the very finest of the best, and the Rolex catalog is brimming with classic models that even individuals with no horological interest can identify at a glance. It's still too early to tell whether Tudor's current collection will keep their worth as well as Rolex on the secondary market. It's really improbable in my opinion. Vintage Tudor watches, on the other hand, have experienced tremendous growth in recent years. Certain models, like the early Tudor Submariner references described above, are approaching their Rolex equivalents in price, and Tudor specimens occasionally have an extra exclusivity component. Lo and behold, Rolex and Tudor both produce some of the greatest watches available in their respective price ranges. Rolex has an unblemished history and a heritage that few other watch companies can match. Tudor, on the other hand, is the more daring, the more avant-garde, and its timepieces provide outstanding value for money. And that's the end of our video. I hope we were able to answer your questions, and if you've enjoyed this video as much as we did, please leave a thumbs up and click on the notification bell for more videos above first class. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.